He pretended not to notice the frail old man calling his name. But what happened next would haunt him forever, and change both their lives in a way no one saw coming. Rudra Arora was on top of the world. As the CEO of a booming tech startup valued at over $200 million, his days were filled with interviews, board meetings, and the constant pressure to stay ahead. The boy from a government school in Lucknow had become one of the most powerful names in the Indian business world. That afternoon, as he stepped into the luxurious five-star hotel for a leadership summit, his phone rang non-stop. 2 assistants flanked him, briefing him as they walked. He didn't look left or right, until he heard it. A frail voice. Familiar, almost pleading. "Rudra, beta?" He froze for half a second, then glanced towards the voice. A man, stooped with age, wearing a worn-out kurta, clutching a file to his chest, stood near the entrance. His eyes were full of warmth and hope. It was Mr. Deshmukh, his 6th-grade teacher, the man who once stayed after class to teach Rudra math when he was failing, the man who once bought him a geometry box from his own salary, the man who once told him, "You're going to be someone one day. Don't forget to be kind when you do." But Rudra did forget. At that moment, surrounded by suits and cameras, he nodded stiffly and kept walking. He didn't stop. He didn't speak, and as the elevator doors closed, his chest tightened. He had just ignored the one person who made him believe in himself. But fate wasn't done with Mr. Deshmukh, and Rudra had no idea what was coming next. The summit went on. But Rudra couldn't focus. Every handshake, every round of applause, every compliment felt hollow. All he could hear was that quiet voice calling him beta. All he could see was the look in Mr. Deshmukh's eyes, hope flickering and fading. That night, back in his hotel suite, Rudra stared at the ceiling. He remembered how Mr. Deshmukh used to give him extra lunch when he forgot his tiffin. How he shielded him from punishment when he came to school with torn shoes. How he sat with Rudra's mother during the school open day, translating her silence into pride. And Rudra had walked past him, like a stranger. "Why?" he whispered to himself. "Why did I do that?" The next morning, he called his driver. "Take me to that hotel entrance, now." They searched for hours. Checked CCTV footage, asked the doorman, but Mr. Deshmukh was gone. "No one knows where he went," the receptionist said. "He left quietly, didn't even have tea." Frustrated and ashamed, Rudra called up his old school. The building was barely standing. Most of the staff had moved on, but one elderly clerk still remembered. "Mr. Deshmukh? He retired 8 years ago. Lost his pension in a dispute. Last we heard he was giving tuition in a small basti near Sector 12. Why?" Rudra didn't answer. He was already in the car. As they drove through narrow lanes and muddy roads, Rudra stared out the window, feeling like a child again. Not the powerful CEO, but the boy who once waited eagerly for a nod of approval from the man who believed in him before anyone else did. And when they reached the basti, he got out quietly. There, under a torn plastic roof, surrounded by 5 kids learning on slates, sat Mr. Deshmukh, teaching like he always had, gently, patiently, fully present. Rudra stood there, frozen, eyes stinging. He had a second chance. But what would he say? Rudra stepped forward slowly, his heart pounding harder with every step. The children noticed him first. Their eyes widened, not because they recognized him as a CEO, but because he looked out of place. Clean shoes, branded watch, nervous hands. Mr. Deshmukh looked up, still squinting a bit due to age. Then he blinked. His lips parted, but he said nothing. Rudra fell to his knees in front of the man who once stood tall in his life. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice shaking. I saw you. I heard you. And I walked away." The children stared, confused. One whispered, "Sir, is this man okay?" Mr. Deshmukh looked at Rudra for a long, heavy moment, and then placed his hand on his shoulder. "I knew you'd come back," he said softly. "Because I know the boy I taught. He had a good heart, just got lost in success for a while." Rudra wiped his eyes. "You gave me everything, sir, when I had nothing. And yesterday I made you feel invisible. I don't deserve your kindness." "You always did." Mr. Deshmukh smiled gently. Even when you didn't know it, Rudra stood and turned to the small group of children. He watched how attentively they listened to the man, how they clung to every word. Despite the broken roof and cracked walls, there was light in that space, because of the teacher. That very night, Rudra made a call to his board. "I'm starting a new foundation," he said. "It's called the Deshmukh Project, and it's going to train, support, and honor retired teachers who continue shaping lives, even in the shadows. No branding," he added. "This isn't PR. This is personal 1 week later." A video went viral of a billionaire CEO standing beside his former schoolteacher under a newly built tin roof, laying bricks for a community classroom. CEO rebuilds life of old teacher after publicly ignoring him from guilt to gratitude, the man who never forgot who taught him first. But Rudra didn't care about the views. He cared about the promise. A month later, what was once a leaky corner under plastic sheets had transformed into a small but sturdy school building, with 3 classrooms, a library, and solar panels on the roof. At the entrance stood a newly painted sign: "The Deshmukh Learning Center, where greatness begins with gratitude." Mr. Deshmukh never asked for it, never expected it. But when he walked through the gates with Rudra by his side, he paused, and for the first time in decades, his eyes filled not from pain, but pride. Inside, he found not just kids, but fellow retired teachers, some from his own era, others who had faded into quiet rooms and forgotten benches. Rudra had tracked them down, invited them back, and given them a place where their wisdom was valued again. They were now mentors, guides, foundations. And at the launch event, Rudra finally stood at the podium, not as a CEO, not as a billionaire, but as a student. "I've won awards, led companies, spoken on global stages," he began. "But none of it matters more than this. I'm only here because one teacher decided not to give up on me when the world did." He turned to Mr. Deshmukh. "You once said I'd be someone someday. I hope today you're proud of who I became, not because of what I've built, but because I came back." The hall rose to their feet. Mr. Deshmukh simply smiled, holding Rudra's hand, and whispered, "I never stopped being proud, Beta. I just waited for you to remember who you were." 6 months later, the Deshmukh Project had expanded to 11 cities, supporting hundreds of retired teachers, rebuilding classrooms in slums, and offering mentorship programs for students with no one to guide them. And every weekend, Rudra still visited that first learning center, not with cameras, not in a suit, but with notebooks in hand, quietly listening to Mr. Deshmukh teach algebra to a room full of bright, barefoot children. Because some debts can't be paid with money. They're repaid through action, through presence, through saying, "I remember you." And sometimes, through simply turning back when a tired voice calls out, "Beta?"